Timothy Michael Jousma, how dare you throw garbage out of a car? Throw garbage anywhere other than in a trash can. Like, what the hell? You were not raised that way. Like, no. I don't make excuses from our childhood. That's just asinine. Who throws garbage on the ground? It's selfish, self-centered, and stupid. And make sure Aubrey hears this, because no, Aubrey, we were not fucking raised that way.
You're listening to the Friends Talking Nerdy Podcast Network.
Friends Talking Nerdy. If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
Hello, and welcome to this special episode of Friends Talking Nerdy, where Professor Aubrey takes off on her own without Tim the Nerd to try and convey what she's up to for the next couple of weeks, which is living and volunteering at the Oregon Country Fair. So I just thought I'd let you know some of the things that I get up to in my job and also camping. This is the first day, full day I've been on site. Drove out yesterday from Portland to the fair site, which is about 2.5 hours. I had my little fit packed to the gills with tents and tarps and boxes full of stuff and clothes and a stove and towels for the shower. And this is actually really great camping because you don't have to bring food. So they serve 3 meals a day in the main camp kitchen. And so all you have to do is camp out and then go there for your 3 meals. So if I had to bring food for 2 weeks, or even have a plan for food for 2 weeks, it would be much more difficult than what I'm currently doing. So anyway, my car was full and I got here and dropped all my stuff, then used a cart to carry it about 500 yards to my campsite, and got my tent all put up and ready basically just in time for dark. And so I was very tired at that point and passed out. It's funny, the things that seem good about going on vacation, and for me, vacation often means camping, and it's that moment when you get ready to buy ice. That means you're completely packed. The car is packed. You're ready to hit the road, and your next stop is camping. You got to stop for ice. And so yesterday, I did not follow this maxim, which is get ice as soon as you're ready to leave town. Instead, I thought, well, I have to go to Tigard to pick something up, so I'll just get ice in Tigard. Tigard's about 20 miles south of Portland. And the problem is, there was no ice in Tigard. I looked everywhere, and all of the ice, cabinets were empty, no ice. It's like there had been a giant run on ice, which was wacky. So couldn't get any ice. And I also had heard that McDonald's will sell you ice, like if you go through the drive-thru, but I could never find a McDonald's that was open. So, or even a McDonald's period, which I usually am happy about, but I really needed some ice. So I finally got to a little place on the highway before Eugene and got 2 small bags of ice, and that was all that they had available. So I had to call in a favor for some more ice, and that is apparently arriving today. So I've been in this like ice panic mode where I don't have enough ice. My stuff is not as cold as I want it to be. And, when you're camping, when you don't have something that you need, it can be disturbing because you can't just run out and get it. Like, it comes from pretty far away, or you have to have somebody bring it to you. So I'm a little panicked about ice. Otherwise, I'm feeling good about camp, and I had my first work shift this morning. So basically, to live here for 2 weeks, you have to volunteer for 2 weeks. So I am volunteering. This event, the Oregon Country Fair, lasts for 3 days on July 7th, 8th, and 9th. It is currently June 23rd, and I have arrived for my 2-week stint, and then I will go to the fair just as a participant, having earned my pass by volunteering. So it's a pretty cool way to get to go to events that have relatively expensive tickets. I think the ticket for 3 days at the fair is $140, so it's $140 savings. Plus, I get to hang out and camp, which I love. So why do I love camping? I like being out in nature. You can hear the birds. I like taking time to just sit and look at nature. It always helps me to feel more grounded. I'm also camping with a whole bunch of friends. So there are a lot of people camping here that I know. And so it's almost like a little village. And that's super fun. So it's not just the individuals that I'm sharing a tent with. It's like all the people around me are people I know. And that's super great to get away for 2 weeks with a bunch of your friends. I mean, when do you get to do that? Your destination wedding, maybe. But other than that, other than people's weddings, people don't usually get together, all your friends at one time. So it's a pretty great time. I also enjoy doing things for myself, sleeping in a tent that I put up, sitting around a fire where I cut the wood, drinking water that I carried. All of these things just make me feel really good. So that's why I love camping. And that's why I love the Oregon Country Fair. I'm really excited to be here. It's only been a day and a half. I could already really use a shower. Luckily, the beautiful Ritz sauna and shower will be open tonight at 8 p.m. So I will be rushing there at 8 to get into the wonderful wooden sauna shower village that they have here at the Oregon Country Fair called the Ritz. That's what I'm most looking forward to today. I have already done my work shift this morning. I work for the quartermaster here at the fair, and we basically are an information hub, and we're in charge of like all tools and supplies and getting the counts for meals and just like making the place run. So it's a very exciting and fun job. So anyway, I'm just going to chill out for a little while here and enjoy my campsite, and I will be back to you with another chapter in my first solo podcast. So just hang on. Well, hello again from the beautiful Oregon Country Fair in Veneta, Oregon. I am hanging out in my wonderfully cool tent. My campsite is blessed with lots of trees, so I've got great shade, which means I get to sleep late, much later than other people, and I feel kind of sad for them because it's so lovely to lie in with the dappled sun coming through your tent and the birds singing, etc. Although yesterday I heard a rumor that there's a cougar on site. Someone apparently heard rustling and then heard growls and little chirping sounds that sound like kittens. So we're very concerned that there is a cougar family on site and that we might be in danger. So now every time I'm walking around at night, I'm like, I'm going to get eaten by a cougar. Sweet. Going to get eaten by a cougar. Oh my God. So that's what's going on right now. I want to talk a little bit about my job. So I think I mentioned that I work at the quartermaster, and I'm just starting my job. So last year I worked in motor pool, which we controlled the flow of rental vehicles to different crews at the fair. That was my job last year. And this year I wanted to have a job that was a little more active in pre-fair, so before the fair starts. So I decided I wanted to join quartermaster. And I asked, could I please join quartermaster? And it was a long time waiting for them to decide. And then finally they said yes, and I was really excited. So yesterday was my first day working at Quartermaster, and I worked in the position that's called Box 3. So there's a Box 1, a Box 2, and a Box 3. And as you might expect, they're kind of ranked in order of importance. So if there's only 2 people available, it's Box 1 and Box 2. If you've got a third person, sure, you got Box 3. So Box 3 is kind of the position that gets the tasks that are annoying to do, so that would take more experienced people away doing menial tasks, right, which you don't want to do. So you put your least experienced people in Box 3, and essentially what Box 3 does is unlocks gates for people, and they're restricted areas where cars can only go certain times of day. And so there are lots of gates around, and I have what's called a lock list that has all of the lock numbers and all of the combinations for all of the locks on the site. So I have so much power. I could just willy-nilly go unlocking gates or locking gates that are unlocked. We actually call the chains that go across a road with a lock here at the fair, they're called hippie traps, because at night, if there are groups of hippies who might be inebriated in some way, and they might run into one of those chains and fall down and hurt themselves. So apparently, from experience, those are called hippie traps. Anywho, so I unlocked a lot of gates. I also checked out tools. So basically what happens here at the fair is that there's an upland area and a lowland area. And the lowland area is actually where the fair part is. And the upland area is all the backstage part. So the lowland area floods every year and becomes a lake and then dries out in the spring. So that by June, which is the month we're in now, everything's pretty dried out. Then they have to come in and deconstruct everything that was destroyed by the water and reconstruct. And it's all made of wood. And to see it last week or 2 weeks ago, which was the first time I was on site this year, and even seeing it now and the transformations that are happening, like it just looks like an abandoned, falling apart place when you first get here, and you just cannot imagine what it looks like on opening fair day. It is so beautiful, full of flowers, full of lights, full of seats and beautiful things made out of wood, and restaurants and craft booths, and all of that gets constructed over the course of a month. And so what my job at Quartermaster was to check out tools to people who needed to borrow them. So either people who were working on site on a project or people who were working on their booths. And so they might need a saw or some zip ties or whatever. And they come to the Quartermaster, and it's Box 3 that gets the tools. So for me, these are great jobs because I will learn all the names of all the gates. I will learn how to get to all the gates, and I will learn what all the tools are and all the people on all the different crews. So it's a great opportunity for me to get to know more people at the fair and more about the fair, and also, make good relationships with my coworkers. So I'm super excited and continue to have a good time. I have gotten a few emails from back in Portland and the work world calls, but I've given myself these 2 weeks to be in the woods and not worry about it. And then I'll get back to business. And I think everybody should treat vacation that way if you can, if there's any way that you can, because everybody needs that time to regenerate. We can't run ourselves into the ground and expect our bodies and our minds to still give us what we need. So with that, I hope that you enjoy some restful time and are able to get out in nature today and enjoy yourself. Hi there, and welcome to the third installment of Aubrey's great adventure going to the Oregon Country Fair. I've been here a week now, and I've been working in the Quartermaster's box, as I explained before. I've learned so much about the fair and the people who work here and what it's like to live here, and it's really been a whole lot of fun. So I want to say going for a week to a festival to work is a really fun thing to do. All of my gear has worked out. My tent is good. My shade house is good. I've had plenty of drinks in my cooler. I've had plenty of snacks in my snack box, and have been eating really healthy food at the main camp kitchen where we all go to eat 3 meals a day. So it's really a beautiful place to hang out. I've been able to spend a lot of time with my friends who I'm camping with, as well as a lot of time with the people that I work with in the quartermaster. And I've just been having a great time. So tonight is full moon. And so we will be meeting, all my friends and I are going to meet and go out into the field and dance under the full moon and then go moon people. So it's just like a wacky summer camp kind of experience. And I've really been enjoying it. Some challenges I have faced include not getting enough sleep. So it's fun to stay up late, but then the sun comes out and you have to wake up early in the morning. So there's a general lack of sleep happening that is not super fun. But the late nights are really fun. So you got to pay for them with the early mornings. But my schedule has not been too bad. I've been working a lot of 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. shifts, which gives me time in the morning to sleep and then time after 9 to hang out. So that's great. There have been some interpersonal challenges. I think whenever you're spending a lot of time with people that you don't normally spend a lot of time with, there's a great opportunity for miscommunication or, not really understanding the other person. So, that has definitely happened a few times, and I've had little conflicts I have to resolve with people, and sometimes that's really challenging and not a fun vacation-y thing to do, but has to be done. And, ultimately, when you can be honest with people about how you're feeling and what you're doing, that's going to be much better than just being upset about it. And, I learned that lesson this week when I was feeling a lot of conflict with someone, but I wasn't able to resolve that conflict for a couple of days, and it just ate me up inside. And whenever we sort of aren't expressing ourselves, that can be very disruptive to our day, right? When you feel like, somebody's upset or something bad is happening, that it's your fault, then, that feels really bad. But I've been able to resolve those conflicts, which feels really good. Like, difficult personal thing is easy to just stick your head in the sand, avoid that person. But it's always with you, this sense of somebody doesn't like me or somebody's upset with me. And that kind of ruins my day. I know that, if I feel like I'm doing well and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, who cares what other people say? That's one approach. I feel really sensitive. I have a number of issues that make it so that I feel really rejected when people maybe aren't even rejecting me. And so that makes it difficult for other people because they're like, I'm just acting like I would act towards anybody, and Aubrey's upset. Well, there's lots of good reasons for that, none of which is happening now, right? When we have past trauma, it can often feel like that trauma is repeating itself. So if we have trauma from a parent being hypercritical, when somebody says anything critical to us, it can feel like, that's the old way that I was feeling. So that can be difficult. It can be hard to remember now is not then. This person is not my parent. I'm not 3. I am a grown person and I can respond rationally to stimulus that I experience, whether from other people or from the weather or from the location. Like, having those internal resources to not just get really frustrated and walk away. And I guess to a certain extent that happens. Like when I go to work and I'm feeling really bored and want to be asleep or want to be hanging out with friends, like it kind of sucks to be having to work as a volunteer. You don't get to decide every day whether you're going to work as a volunteer. You have a schedule. It's just like a job. So, that's good and bad in that people have to be dedicated to it in order to be accepted as part of the volunteer crew. But at the same time, it's a volunteer job. And so you can't get too hepped up or too attached to the outcomes there. So that's what's been going on at work. I've gone on a few adventures. My car died, so I had to try to get it started. I had to move my car a couple times. I went to town, etc. So I'm hoping to go to town again tonight, or at least have someone go to town for me, because I'm needing supplies. And that's, another thing that's cool about this particular environment is that everybody sort of pitches in for each other. So like, even if I can't go to the store, if somebody else is going to the store, they can get stuff for me. The one thing I need to get right now is cash, because once the fair starts, we have to pay for all of our own food and beverages and entertainment. And it's quite expensive at the fair. So I need to make sure I have plenty of cash for that. So that's my job for the day, is figuring out how to do my work for 8 hours and get to town and get some cash. Every day it seems like there's some kind of challenge to be solved. It's very all-encompassing, so it's hard to think about anything in the outside world, whether it's my actual job or my relationships back home. You just get so into like, how am I going to survive? How am I going to get to work? Am I going to wake up on time? How do I get to town to get the things I need? I need ice. How am I going to get that? These things just become more and more complicated as more and more people descend on the site. Like currently there are about 2,000 people on site. Last week there were about 200. So it's a huge change. And by this time Wednesday, there'll be about 10,000 people on site working on the fair, which will have about 15,000 people visit it. So on a day when the fair is being attended by the public and all of the workers are here, there's going to be like 25,000 people here. It's just a huge amount of buzzing humanity. So I'm trying to enjoy just the last few days of just workers being here and that community and camaraderie that we've developed over the last couple of weeks. Really enjoy that, and then, have the payoff be being able to hang out at the fair without worrying about going to work. So that's my plan. That's what I've been up to. I've been facing challenges. I've been doing good work, and I've been having a really good time. So that's what my big summer adventure has been like so far, and I can't wait to update you during the fair, and we can enjoy the sights and sounds of the Oregon Country Fair together. All right, until next time, I hope you have a great adventure.
Hi, this is Tim the Nerd coming at you right now. As you can tell by my voice and the fact that I identified myself as Tim the Nerd, I'm not Professor Aubrey. The internet conditions at the Oregon Country Fair area were not the best, so Professor Aubrey was not able to properly upload the last bit of audio that she wanted to include on this particular episode. So I'm kind of wrapping things up here with a quick segment that I think would be interesting here. A little tradition that I started on my other podcast, Tim's Tremendous Tapes, which is currently on hiatus. Thank you very much. And let's talk about a quick list article. List articles are nothing more than conversation starters. Let's be honest here. The people who put them together, even if they have very stringent rules about what qualifies for what place and whatnot, it's still at the end of the day people's opinion. And stuff like this is meant to just get people talking. So I thought, why not go to the good folks at Collider? They have a great section of list articles here. And find one and talk about it on the air here to close out Professor Aubrey's excellent adventure. And being that she is a professor, I thought we'd go a little educational here, folks. We're going to be talking about 10 authors who have the most book-to-movie adaptions. So we'll go through the list here. If I am familiar with their work, then, I'll definitely give some thoughts on some of the adaptions here. But as usual, if I'm not familiar with their work in any way, shape, or form, I will just say pass after I tell you their name. So let's start off at number 10. Mr. Dean Koontz has 8 adaptions of his work, which is pretty impressive if you think about it. I mean, most people like Gregory MacDonald with the Fletch series only had 2. And there are a lot more books in that Fletch series. And, if you want to read some great detective stories that are funny as hell, read the Fletch series. But anyway, Dean Koontz here. I'm not too familiar with his work. Without having read it, I just get the impression he's kind of like a low-rent Stephen King. I could very much be wrong. So, if there are fans of his that are out there listening that want to disagree with me, by all means, get in contact with me via social media and all that stuff, and we'll definitely have a conversation from there. But at the end of the day, it's just purely subjective. It just, nothing about his work really impressed me enough to say I gotta check it out. But at the end of the day, more power to him though, because the more writers are able to get their work created, put on the big screen in Hollywood, the better that helps everybody else out. Because I think one thing with Hollywood too is a lot of times they want to throw so much money into these big blockbusters that, they want to make sure that, especially the sequels, there are a lot of sequels because people, it's a sure, 9 times out of 10, it's a sure bet that the movie will make some money back compared to an unknown property. So if someone like Dean Koontz can get his work made, being unknown movie properties, obviously, they're existing as books, but, adapting books to movies has long been, obviously we have a list here, but it's long been a tradition of Hollywood here. So something original is definitely nice. So there's me trying to say something nice about the guy. Let's go on to number 9. John le Carre. He has 10 adaptions of his work. He's kind of like the anti-Ian Fleming. And because of that, I haven't really been interested in reading his work. What do I mean by that? He wrote British spy novels, but wrote them very realistically. I mean, the stuff in his books could theoretically happen in real life. And also, too, John le Carre was just much better at, characterization and all that stuff. And I can say that as someone who's not a fan. I think it is important, especially if you are a fan of reading, if you're a fan of music or whatever, you can appreciate the work that somebody puts in without necessarily liking it. There are very few Vanilla Ices out there that just deserve condemnation and scorn. I can get behind, respecting the work of most anybody. Again, doesn't mean I have to like it. In the case of John le Carre here, it's a little slow for my taste, which is why I never really got far into reading The Russia House, the only book of his I tried to read. But anyway, let us go on. Number 8, a fellow I have not heard of before by the name of Ian McEwan. Number 10, according to the article here, he is a British author and screenwriter best known for writing literary fiction that often deals with themes of love, loss, and morality. So that's why I've not heard of it. He's responsible for novels that were turned into movies like Atonement, On Chesil Beach, The Children Act, The Cement Garden, The Good Son, stuff like that. So again, I'm not familiar with the guy's work, so we do have to go on here to the next one. But if you're a fan of his, yay. All right, the next one here, number 7, Nicholas Sparks with 11. I've never read one of his books. I've never watched one of his movies. He's super he's a romance author, and probably like the Garth Brooks of romance authors at the end of the day or something like that. Just he does a good job, but does it in a way that has attracted more attention than some romance authors do, I guess. But Again, 11 of his books have been made into movies, which is pretty impressive because, he's only been, oh God, it does seem like yesterday that he just debuted, but, reading the article here, he's going back a little over 20 years now. So that is a whole career, folks. Time flies when you get old, kids. Let's put it that way. But, still big name in the romance market and just great for him, but haven't seen his work. So next, number 6, J.K. Rowling with 11 works as well. Now, obviously, we are familiar with the fact that most of the movies here, it looks like, that have been made have been related to Harry Potter. We know her scandals and whatnot, and we've talked about it on Friends Talking Nerdy many times over. You know where we stand on this, so we'll just leave that alone. But too, she's been one that's been, active for a little over 20 years now as well. So to be able to get that amount of work made into movies, pretty damn impressive. Let's put it that way. All right, number 5, one of my favorite writers, Ian Fleming. 14 works of fiction that he created were made into films, including Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Ian Fleming wrote that, which, I learned later on in life and was definitely fascinated by that. But, of course, Ian Fleming is responsible for the creation of James Bond. So Bond movies that are still being made to this day, a lot of them have been inspired by sometimes just the title, but from pretty much everything he's written. There are still a few titles of some of his short stories that they've not used yet that there's a good chance they may, but they've pretty much mined everything they could from him, and rightfully so. I mean, the James Bond novels were not like Stephen King books or anything like that. I mean, they're very short by modern comparisons. And, in terms of like characterization, like I mentioned with John le Carre, it's not that deep. But for the types of stories that Ian Fleming is writing, it doesn't matter. Which is why a character like James Bond could be played by different actors giving different interpretations, because we don't have that deeper characterization that would link that character to just one actor, if that makes sense. But, all right, let's go on to number 4 here. John Grisham actually has the man beat, has Ian Fleming beat, with 15 of his books made into movies. Now, when he first started hitting in the 90s, I would always, if I saw one of his books hit the paperback aisle, I'm not getting hardback for anything. I'm way too cheap, folks. But once I saw the paperbacks out, I would, snatch them up and read them. I mean, the first film of his that I saw was A Time to Kill, which I had seen just shortly after I first saw Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. And seeing the dichotomy of Samuel L. Jackson's performance, Samuel L. Jackson gets cast in very particular type of loud roles. People kind of sleep on the fact that he's one hell of a damn good actor. While A Time to Kill is not one of the greatest movies ever made or anything like that, I think it definitely shows Samuel L. Jackson's chops as an actor. Another film and book you should check out from John Grisham as well. Probably my favorite John Grisham book is The Rainmaker. The Rainmaker was made into a movie in the mid-90s starring Matt Damon, directed and written by Francis Ford Coppola. And I got to tell you, I'm usually not one to necessarily like all adaptions based on books, but I thought, Francis Ford Coppola's already got a concrete history of doing this the right way. And, I was nervous at first, but The Rainmaker's an underrated film. You should check it out. All right, number 3, we've mentioned him already. Stephen King with 34 works of his made into movies, and what's not to say about the man? I mean, he's an inspiration, I think, to writers everywhere, in the fact that, he was one of us at one point, just the Kevin Smith of writing, but just more successful. And yeah, I mean, his works will continue to be made into movies for years and years and years after he unfortunately passes away, which is hopefully is a long time in the future. Here, he's one of the 20th century's best writers. I'll put it out there. Not the best. I'm not going to go that far because I don't necessarily think there is a the best, if that makes sense. But I think Stephen King is going to be remembered, like we remember Mark Twain now. Not saying Stephen King is as good as Mark Twain, but he will be a name that we will remember. All right, number 2, Agatha Christie with 48. I remember that Doctor Who episode. Season 4 of just the restart of the series in 2005. It was the last season with David Tennant, and they had an episode where they met up with Agatha Christie, and I guess there was a point in history where Agatha Christie for real disappeared for like 3 days, and then they found her at a hotel, and she didn't remember how she got there, and so the show's producers made a story around that, which I thought was pretty fun and interesting. But they also made a point at the end of the Doctor grabbing a copy of an Agatha Christie book that he had in the TARDIS and showing that it had like a copyright of like 1 million or something like that her work would go far in the future. And in some ways, I think it will. I mean, it's like, I think in terms of the general public buying the books and reading them in large numbers, maybe not, but she definitely set a formula that people are still utilizing to great effect today. I mean, think of, what's that Ryan Johnson movie, Knives Out, with Daniel Craig, and then which recently had a sequel that was on Amazon Prime and whatnot, followed a lot of the basic tenets that Agatha Christie created. I mean, she essentially laid the foundation for what the whodunit type of series go for. So, yeah, maybe 500, 1,000 years from now, people aren't necessarily reading Murder on the Orient Express, but they're definitely writing stories with Agatha Christie format. All right, and topping the list, no surprise here if you really think about it, William Shakespeare, 1,121 movies based off of his work. And they're diverse in a lot of ways. You have the traditional retellings, like, your Kenneth Branagh films. You have other weird takes, like your Romeo and Juliet, of the one with Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes in the 90s. And you also have your Romeo and Juliet from Troma Films, written by James Gunn and narrated by Lemmy. I mean, again, kind of like Agatha Christie in a way. He created certain story ideas and formulas that can be used in different ways and have been used in many different ways over the years. And also, too, being the fact that, he's been in the public domain for many, many decades and a couple centuries at this point, shows the importance of what releasing popular stories into the public domain will do. It will improve the idea, but also keep that the original seed there alive and well. Because if people weren't still interested in William Shakespeare, they wouldn't be, looking to take his plays and make them into movies still. But they're going to keep on doing that. But anyway, that's enough of me rambling, folks. I hope you enjoyed the list here. We'll have a link to that in the show profile if you wanted to check it out. And by all means, this weekend it's going to be hot. Just kick back, get a book, whether it's a physical book or you got a digital book or an audio book playing in the background, sit in front of the fan or have the air conditioner going if it is hot in your area, and read some this weekend like I recommended. If you purchase any of the Fletch series books, the author is Gregory MacDonald. The Fletch books were, of course, made into the Chevy Chase films, and then recently they had another Fletch film, Confess Fletch, with, I believe, John Hamm, the guy from Mad Men, which didn't work too well for me. I really wish the Kevin Smith version of Fletch won the book I'm currently reading. He had the idea of having Jason Lee as Fletch, and the world lost out on a really good performance. But anyway, that's enough of me. Like I said, read this weekend. Thank you all for joining us. And each Saturday we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu. Now I got little Annie right here. Usually I have Professor Aubrey or whoever else is recording with me try to say something to get a joke, but I got little Annie on the pillow next to me as I record this. Let's see if we can get some purrs from her to send you off into another week of goodness.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.